All right. So many big stories going on in the news. Everything that Donald Trump does, Democrats immediately have to take the opposite position, or they feel like they're going to lose respect from their voters. Something, I don't know. The whole country seems to have gone crazy with Trump derangement syndrome if you didn't vote for him. To help me go through this and other big stories, I have Orrin McIntyre. Orrin, thank you for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to jump in on this federalizing law enforcement, bringing the National Guard into Washington, D.C. I'm seeing a lot on TikTok and Twitter. Seems like the residents are actually pretty happy about this idea of crime going down. What are your thoughts? Is this President Trump overreaching, or is keeping America safe exactly what a president should be doing?
No, I think this is a very smart move by him on every level. As you said, there's a Trump derangement syndrome dynamic that happens here where anything that he does is immediately attacked. They have to take the opposite side. This has been very bad with for Democrats when it comes to immigration. Obviously, they end up defending the worst people in the world, wife beaters and drug dealers and gang members and all these people. It looks horrible for them. And after a few month or two really of the Trump administration having some trouble with its own base, it's good for them to have a strong narrative about law and order. And immediately Democrats are jumping on the opposite train. They have to defend the criminals. They have to say there is no crime wave. There's nothing wrong. But anyone who's been to Washington, D.C. knows this. I've only been there a few times. And even the times I've been there in the nice parts, there's vagrants everywhere. There's homeless people screaming at you, at each other, threatening violence towards each other. It just feels like a grimy, unsafe city. We are the greatest country in the world. We are the world's only superpower. There is no reason that our capital should not be a shining city on a hill for everyone. It's embarrassing that a woman could walk through Tokyo or somewhere in Singapore in the middle of the night and fear nothing. But in our own nation's capital in America, that is not the case. It simply doesn't have to be that way. And I'm with you. I think that while most of the residents of DC will continue to vote for Democrats because that's what they do, they've been told anything else is racist, they're pretty happy to actually see the law and order coming to their own city. They have to live in this stuff. They know it's real, and they know that the president can change it if he does the right thing.
Okay. I like to juxtapose things to let my mind better understand. Do you think it's interesting that Gavin Newsom cleaned up the drugs and the homeless situation in order to impress China and keep the president of China, Xi Jinping, happy, as if San Francisco was this glowing beacon on a hill? And President Trump is cleaning up Washington, D.C. for the people, to keep the people safe. It's not for a foreign dignitary. It's not this fake village, to impress China or Vladimir Putin or something. Your thoughts on that? Like, literally, Gavin Newsom did it to impress China. Donald Trump did it because it's the right thing for the American people.
Yeah, there is a deep irony that we actually created a Potemkin village for the Chinese officials when they come over to visit. But yeah, it's so clear that, again, we know how to stop crime. Everybody knows how to stop crime. This isn't some kind of, complex science that requires intense degrees of study. We know exactly how to do this. Gavin Newsom even knows how to do this. He just lies about it because he can do it on a dime when he needs to. And so it's very clear that it's not about Trump being some kind of authoritarian or racist or overreaching his constitutional authority or any of this stuff. They don't care about it at all. It is simply a political football. Trump does it, so it's bad. Even if people's lives are saved, even if it restores law and order, even if it cleans up the city, they don't care. And the hypocrisy doesn't occur to them in the slightest. It does not even factor in to the equation. Trump is a racist. He's a bad guy. He's an authoritarian. So everything he does is evil, even if it's exactly what we did 10 minutes ago to impress the Chinese.
Yeah. Wow. Let me I want to hear what the mainstream media has to say, because I've been watching people on Fox saying, yeah, I was held at gunpoint. I was robbed. I got carjacked. I'm seeing people on CNN say that. I'm seeing MSNBC, CBS News, like a lot of people in the mainstream media, like they know that they're supposed to put up this orange man bad narrative, but on a personal level, they're like, dude, I know people that have been carjacked, robbed, violated. So let me show you what they were saying over on Morning Joe. because it was really, really interesting.
The answer to this problem for Democrats is not, oh, everything's okay, there's nothing to see here, move along, move along. Oh, Washington has dropped 24% or whatever in crime. Well, let me give you some other numbers. The Washington Post took a poll in late April, early May. 91% of Washington residents say crime is a problem. 91%. 51%, it is an extremely serious problem. And John Heilman, we've had people before put this in racial terms. And this is what I must say, this is one thing that I think Democrats have gotten so wrong about crime. So wrong about crime. Let me just read the Washington Post here. There are stark divides among lines of race and income in the poll, with black residents and lower income residents significantly more worried about crime than white residents and those with higher incomes. As they were last year, black women are among the most concerned, with 65% saying crime is a very or extremely serious issue, compared with 82% who.
So Morning Joe, who's usually pretty anti-Trump, was bringing some fire with some actual facts, saying 91% of residents, not Democrat leaders, but the people that live there, think that crime is a problem. Oh, and you can't say it's racist because the largest group that feels unsafe are black women, black families, people that are not high on the economic social status. They're saying this is a problem. Your thoughts on all of that?
Well, it's clear that the left is losing people on this. If you're familiar with Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks,
Yes.
She has actually been saying, the Democrats are losing me because she was assaulted after being told over and over again that, I believe she lives in California, in LA, but she was told in Gavin Newsom state that she was safe and it would be racist for her to have any concerns about crime. And then she was attacked. And so she says, I'm done with this. I'm not going to play this game anymore. And I think more and more people recognize this. I don't care what your opinions are on foreign trade or welfare or immigration. Ultimately, you want your family to be safe. That is a core value that everyone has. Now, unfortunately, while the black community has expressed many of these concerns, they continue to vote for Democrats. They continue to return Democrats to office. And so they are suffering the consequences of that decision. But Donald Trump is standing up and saying, look, ultimately, I cannot allow the nation's capital to continue to have this level of crime. I cannot let this disgrace go on in our nation's capital. And so I am taking charge and I'm making a difference. And as much as they might hem and haw about it, I think the people living in Washington, D.C. recognize that this is a huge problem. Obviously, that poll reflects their recognition of that fact. And ultimately, I think they're going to appreciate that their streets are safer, even if they're not going to show up to the polls and vote Republican next time.
Yeah. I do wonder, let me push back on that just for a second. So 91% of Washington, D.C. voted against Donald Trump. That same number, 91%, say the streets are dangerous. Crime is dangerous. The thugs are out of control, right? Interesting that they're both this 91%. Is there any chance that they just didn't think it could be done any other way? Let me couch it to you this way. President Trump said, oh, when it came to the border, everyone believed that we just had to put up with 10,000 people a day coming into the country. It turns out we didn't need a different policy. We just needed a different president. I'm just wondering, with streets now cleaned up, if those 91% that voted against Trump, that also those 91% say crime is bad, if crime actually gets cleaned up, do they maybe soften their hearts towards Donald Trump?
I think there will be some of that, right? I think success ultimately does give you some leeway with people who otherwise would not vote for you. But honestly, I don't think you're going to be seeing a huge sea change. And the reason for that is our politics now are more tribal than they are rational. It's not about people voting for better policies so they can produce a better outcome. They've been told by their friends, their family, oftentimes their churches and their communities that Donald Trump is evil and is coming for them. And let's be honest, most of Washington, D.C. is in one way or another entirely dependent on government spending. So they're not just going to suddenly start voting for the party that's going to cut that stuff because of crime. They don't like the crime, don't get me wrong, but they have other concerns that they're tied to. So I do think he would win some support with success here. And either way, he should do it because it's the right thing to do. But I don't think we're going to suddenly see Washington, D.C. become a Republican bastion, even if he totally eliminated crime in the area. And that's just the nature of our political environment right now. I don't think that says anything about Donald Trump or his inability to win over certain communities or areas.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I just had to throw it out there. But you're right. So much is tribal. I mean, even Geraldo Rivera, who used to be the Democrat representative on Fox News, just in the last 48 hours, he said, these Democrats are so stupid. If you just take the opposite position of everything Donald Trump says, you're going to lose voters. So now you literally have people in Washington, D.C. fighting for the criminals, fighting against the police, fighting against the National Guard. It's like, it's just so insane. And maybe Washington, D.C. is broken, but according to CNN, more and more of America likes the way that Trump handles crime and the justice system compared to Biden. Let's watch this and react.
Compare Trump to Biden in handling of crime, please.
Yeah, okay. I think this sort of gives the game away here because Donald Trump is like Air Jordan towering over Joe Biden when it comes to their handling of crime. Look, in 2024, look at where Biden's net approval was on crime. Way underwater there at minus 26 points. It was one of Biden's worst issues. Granted, pretty much every issue was one of Biden's worst issues. And again, look at where Donald Trump is. Way, way, way above Joe Biden. What is that? That's 27 points. So Americans vastly prefer Donald Trump's approach to crime than they did to Joe Biden's. And again, I think it gets back to the point that Americans are far more hawkish on crime than a lot of Democrats want to admit.
Americans writ large, but how does it break down by party?
Yeah, okay. So I think that this is, we're talking about Donald Trump here, right? So I think it's very important to note that this isn't just about Donald Trump. It's about Republicans versus Democrats, right? And that, of course, is a key question going into next year's midterm election. I think the party closest to your views on crime, look, in 2023, Republicans were favored by 13 points. Look at where they were in May of this year. Republicans were actually favored by 16 points. They actually gained ground on crime. They were maintaining their edge and actually added a little bit to it. So Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, they absolutely want to be talking about crime. The more they feel that we're talking about crime, the better they feel that the electoral landscape is for them.
Okay.
All right. So as a party, America more and more is saying, we think Republicans have the solutions to make America safe again. But specifically on Donald Trump, my gosh, a 27-point swing is absolutely massive. Your thoughts on that? Hey, friends, it's Stephen Gardner here. And today I want to tell you about something really exciting. I've just partnered with Monetary Gold, one of the top names in physical gold and silver. Why? Because I believe now more than ever, Americans need real protection. From inflation to market volatility to politicians spending us deeper and deeper into debt. Gold has stood the test of time. It's not just an asset, it's security, it's independence, it's peace of mind. And Monetary Gold makes the process simple, direct, and secure. Here's what I want you to do. Go to StephenLovesGold.com. That's StephenLovesGold.com and claim your free gold IRA guide, or call 800-608-1770 right now to speak with a real specialist who will answer your questions and help you get started. Don't wait. Protect your future with something real.
Again, this has always been one of Donald Trump's biggest selling points, and this is what Americans wanted. This is certainly what GOP voters wanted when they returned Trump to the White House. They are tired of the excuses. Again, we know how crime is solved. We know how this works. Rudy Giuliani famously cleaned up New York with broken windows policing. If you let small crimes go through, the big crimes get easier and easier. When people think that they can get away with shoplifting, they escalate to carjacking, and then they escalate to murder. Each time you allow a crime to happen or you turn a criminal back onto the streets after just a slap on the wrist, you are telling the other citizens of the state or of the city that ultimately the law doesn't matter and it doesn't apply to you, and you can't actually rely on the government to protect you. And that is a very dangerous message. So we are very happy to see a guy like Donald Trump in office. We are very happy to see him take law and order seriously. And we are very happy to see him take substantive action, an action that no other Republican president probably would have ever taken with Washington, DC. When he's doing this, remember, he's not just taking action, he's taking ownership. And that's a dangerous place to be because Washington, DC, well, it did have a crime problem. If this goes sideways, then Trump could be held accountable. But that's what leaders do. They don't sit there and say, oh, well, taking responsibility could put me in the crosshairs. That's what every other politician does. Donald Trump says, no, I am going to take action. I'm going to take this seriously. We're going to clean this up. And I think if it works, and I believe it will, he will receive the credit he's due for that level of leadership.
Yeah. I hope that he does. It's a very big deal. And I know a lot of the people that I speak with, like they want the country to be safe. They're okay with immigration, but they don't want out of control illegal immigration. Like there's just been so many positive changes. However, you have somebody like Gavin Newsom out in California saying, I now have to rig the election in order to block Trump from rigging the election. And he keeps telling everybody that the economy is falling apart, that, life has become way more unmanageable under Donald Trump. Now, you'll probably remember this last week or maybe the week before. I think it was the week before. The Democrat Party puts out this thing that shows Trump's first term, this massive rise in the cost of living, and then it's been pretty much flat. And they say, look, he hasn't brought down the cost of living. But then every Republican was like, look at how bad it got under Biden. So are Gavin Newsom and Democrats, are they just relying on their voters being stupid and not remembering, oh, wait a minute, my life got really freaking expensive under Joe Biden?
Yeah, to a large extent they are. Obviously, it's just, again, Trump is evil, Trump is bad, Orange Man is bad, it's Trump derangement syndrome. Whatever happens, it's his fault, and there was never a president before him who had any policies that might have affected this. But I will say this. It is important for the Trump administration to take cost of living seriously. This is a real problem in the United States. I am an older millennial, and many of the people in my age group and a little bit younger are completely frozen out of the housing market, completely frozen out of the American dream. And that is a dangerous statistic. I saw recently that I believe it was there are more first-time home buyers over 70 than under 35. That is a civilization ending statistic if it continues. And so while I don't think this is Donald Trump's fault specifically, he has to understand that because so many presidents from both parties have just been printing money at ridiculous rates for so long, that inflation is so wildly out of control, the cost of living is so bad that drastic action needs to be taken on this issue. And that doesn't make it Trump's fault, but he does have to lead on this. You can't just blow this one off, even if it is largely Democrat talking points when it comes to playing the blame game.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm in that same age bracket where I know a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, they've got to put America first. They've got to put Americans first. They've got to figure this out. I know part of that is these high interest rates, and President Trump, I've never seen a pressure campaign put on somebody harder than on Jerome Powell. Maybe just Trump himself with going through the lawfare, but this guy refuses to lower interest rates. Every business in America that borrows money is paying higher interest rate, and that gets passed on to the consumer. The government's paying more. Our houses are costing more. Our cars are costing more. He's doing this pressure campaign, and then someone you're closely connected with, Glenn Beck, over at The Blaze, he put this out. He was talking with Secretary Wright. He said President Trump asks him every single day, when Americans will see lower energy bills. I wish I could say power prices are coming down 20% next year, but it's simply not possible to do that in 12 months. But Trump is 7 days a week doing everything he can. So this guy's being approached 7 days a week by Donald Trump. What are you doing to lower prices? I mean, I didn't know that was happening, but there is a part of me that's like, okay, on the back end, this guy is doing these full court pressure campaigns to try to make life more affordable for Americans. Your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, it's a bit of a catch-22 because Trump obviously wants to jumpstart the economy. He wants to bring down those rates. You want to get the housing market going again. It's very clear that we're heading into a downturn from that in many different directions. And so he sees this iceberg coming. However, you also have to be careful with inflation. You have to be careful. Obviously, you want to supercharge the economy, but with a lot of people borrowing money, that's obviously going to create a problem there as well. There are other directions he can attack this from, and he already is, obviously, when it comes to something like illegal immigration, right? If you get rid of a large amount of illegal immigration, if you start seeing the deportations and reducing the illegal population, things like housing prices will come down because you won't have the additional people buying up starter homes, or in many cases multiple people are renting it simultaneously. They don't mind living 4, 5, 6 people of different families into the same house, and this takes away a lot of the starter homes that people would normally have bought into when they were young. So you can affect this with interest rates, and I think ultimately that is probably an important thing for him to be pursuing. But there are other directions you can take as well that will allow you to change this dynamic. So I would like to continue to see a full court press from the Trump administration on the cost of living, especially when it comes to housing. And that includes interest rates, but it also includes stepping up those deportations, which we're already seeing, which is very encouraging.
Yeah, it is encouraging. And I know that things have gotten better, and I hope that they'll just continue to get better as we get further and further away from all the chaos of Joseph Robinette Biden. Let me show you in the audience some financial information that was shared on CNN.
Do you know what the gas prices are right now compared to last month? Gas is down 2.2%. Do you know what it is compared to when Trump took office? It's down by 11%. Groceries, since Donald Trump took office, down by 0.46%. The PPI report, a lot of it is in services, but Correct. We want services to cost more if they're being done by American citizens, not by illegal immigrants. Cars, the most impacted by tariffs. Do you know how cars are doing? They're down 2.4% since April, since the tariffs took into effect. I want to make one point. When there was greedflation after the pandemic, when corporations realized they could get away with raising prices on the American consumer, I was infuriated by that. What Donald Trump has managed to do is bring in $110 billion in tariff revenue, and consumer prices are up by less than 1%. It's coming from those same greedy corporations. He has forced them to eat it. Now, Abby, you're saying they haven't passed it on yet. Okay, but can we just give him the credit now
I think that
for having done that?
We should just acknowledge.
Let's
just. I just want to underscore.
I think there was some greedflation. I honestly believe a lot of companies were like, hey, a lot of people are raising prices. We're getting pressure to raise wages. We've got this tariff stuff. We've got the high inflation from the Biden administration. Let's raise our price. I think some of that happened. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I'm sure that's the case. I mean, ultimately, these people are going to make money wherever they can. If they think they can get away from it, if they think there's some kind of narrative cover to make that move, then they're going to do that. But ultimately, it is good that we are seeing some of these prices fall. Like I said, I think this is a very serious issue that the Trump administration should pay attention to. It should address, even though, again, the Democratic narrative on blame is a false one. It is going to impact them if people don't see those prices coming down. They are starting, but those numbers, while are important, are still relatively small. They're not enough for people to feel it in their pocketbooks immediately. But if this trend continues, obviously Donald Trump is going to get a lot of credit for that, and hopefully he is able to continue that trend.
Yeah, I hope so. I've just now seen grocery prices come down in my area. They were saying this in the beginning. I saw a little bit of that, but I saw the price of eggs cut in half the price of milk is down almost 25%. It was almost $4 a gallon. Now it's like $2.89 where I live. I would love to see these prices continue to come down. But I do think it does take some time, and there's going to be some areas of the economy. I don't know that we'll ever see those prices come down. They just continue to go up. But you made a point about your generation, also older people, struggling with all of the Biden inflation that's still in the system. But Charlie Kirk, he went on the Squawk Box, and he was basically saying the government owes us an apology and a better government, and they owe us solutions because younger Americans and older Americans are still struggling financially. Let's go ahead and watch this, and then we'll react to that.
In a post-COVID world,
I'm just an idealist to believe
hold on, Andrew.
You're not the left. You're not intolerant.
You know where I'm going with this. Yeah. We did not receive any apologies from the ruling class that lied to us repeatedly during COVID. The lockdowns, the efficacy of the vaccine, mask mandates, school closures, and we just act as if it didn't happen. And I don't think the American ruling class understands the undermining of their credibility that happened when the entire country had their lives thwarted, especially young people. We're just supposed to reopen the country and be like, well, why don't you trust us anymore? Well, it's because, the Hunter Biden laptops, Russian disinformation, 50 intel operations signed this letter. And I'm making a good point here because there was no contrition.
That's just one example.
And again, I could go one after the other.
No. I would say that actually COVID, to me, this is actually generational, is actually very much like the 2008 crisis in a way.
Okay,
that spawned Occupy Wall Street. This has sort of spawned a different sort of political.
Do you want to do Russia collusion? Do you want to do the laptop? Do you want to do? Take your pick on the way things are covered in this country.
All I'm suggesting though is this full-on, constant relitigation of what took place in the past, as opposed to a clear-eyed view of what's happening now.
I would just interject respectfully that it's not just relitigation. First of all, no one was held accountable largely for what happened.
That's why I said it's sort of like 2008, because a lot of people thought all those bankers were supposed to go to jail, frankly.
Well, and honestly, there should have been, I think there should have been some administration of justice. That's a separate issue. I was young at the time. I can only speak about what we're living through now. And a lot of the COVID injustices we are still seeing today with younger people and their ability to own homes, with the inflation that President Trump is trying to fix that was inherited by Joe Biden. So what I'm getting at, and I know a lot of the C-suite of America watches this program, they might understand where is this populist fervor coming from, is that you have missed the mark on so many of the core proclamations you made to the American people.
Explain to me.
The government owes us an apology. They owe us a better government. People need to be held accountable. This guy's saying, let's stop relitigating. And Charlie Kirk is like, how can we relitigate? Nobody's even been held accountable. They weren't held accountable for the 2008 meltdown. They weren't held accountable for COVID. They weren't held accountable for the wars, for COVID. What are your thoughts on that? I thought he made some pretty good points.
No, he did. It's absolutely correct. How can you relitigate something that hasn't even been litigated in the first place, right? I was actually on with Charlie this week, and we talked a little bit about the loss of institutional authority, but he's absolutely right that ultimately when people look at what happened with COVID, when they look at what happened with the financial crisis, when they look at what happened with Russiagate, and no one goes to jail, no one pays a price, that is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable. We have to deal with this. It is a terrifying fact, honestly. And I said, let me be clear here. I'm not calling for anything. However, I'm a very conservative guy. I don't have a revolutionary bone in my body. But the fact that we went through everything we went through with COVID and nobody, there was no law, no government was toppled, there was no revolution, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. We had the largest wealth transfer in American history to the rich during this time because of the way lockdowns were administered. We had people given shots that harmed them. We had people fired from their jobs because they refused the shots. We had people barring the doors of churches in the United States of America. This is a laundry list that, if you put it in the Declaration of Independence, would have beat out everything that King George was doing. And we did nothing about it. We did nothing about it, and no one has gone to jail. Anthony Fauci is walking around as if nothing happened. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And the idea that we should just move beyond this, oh, we don't need to worry about that, that's all in the past now. Oh, no, absolutely not. No, these people have to go to jail. And that's why I think it's so important, especially with the Russiagate stuff, that the Trump administration send people to jail. We have to see serious criminal prosecutions, people need to do jail time. You cannot tell the American people that their elites can just get away with anything. They can steal all of their money. They can lock their churches. They can make it so they can't even watch their grandma's funeral because of COVID. They cannot declare these kind of things. They cannot destroy our electoral process by using the intelligence agencies to lie about major party candidates and then just walk away from this. You cannot allow this. The American people will eventually do something rather drastic if no action is taken when it comes to our institutions. And you can't sit around and say, oh, I don't understand why no one trusts our institutions when no one gets punished for doing what they're doing. It's just madness.
Yeah, amen. I agree with everything that you just said. One thought, though, that I had, Oren, is I remember when Trump won in 2016, they said this was the biggest middle finger the American people could send to Washington, DC. And although a government wasn't toppled, and I want Trump and his DOJ to handle this, I want accountability. I want them to unwind Dr. Fauci and haul him in. I want Adam Schiff. I want Brennan. I want all of the people that tricked me. I want them all held accountable. At the same time, though, I do feel like re-electing Trump was kind of sending the biggest double middle finger that we could to Washington, D.C. But these Republicans, they need to wake up, carry out the Trump stuff. The number one thing that people are still mad about is they want arrests. They want accountability. Do you think we're going to see that? Because I'm seeing some of that. And yes, Congress is on vacation right now. But when they come back this fall, are we going to see some accountability?
I got to be honest. I'm not hopeful, and I don't want to say that. I don't mean to be down on anybody or give them any black pills or anything. But ultimately, I don't think the Republicans have it in them, which is insane because obviously, you have the House, you have the Senate, you more or less have the Supreme Court, you have the presidency. If the Democrats are in this position, they're basically just passing laws to make it illegal to be right wing, right? That's what they do when they have this kind of power. They don't hesitate. They don't worry about any kind of precedent that they're setting. They just destroy their enemies, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to be entirely ruthless, that you can't have principles, but you have to recognize that if there is no cost for this, they will continue to do this, right? They will continue to do that. Everyone knows the basic the basic dynamic of the playground bully. If you continue to let this person shove you over every time, then they're not going to respect you. You punch them in the face once and you finally get some respect. Republicans have to punch the Democrats in the face. They have to make it difficult for them. It needs to be unpleasant. When the Republicans win everything, something has to happen to the Democrats. No hesitation on the left to do this. They send people to jail for protesting and abortion clinics. They send people to jail for making Hillary Clinton memes. They send people to jail for just doing their job inside the administration. And yet when the Republicans in charge, there's just nothing. There's just silence. This cannot be the dynamic. But sadly, I don't think the Republican Party has learned this lesson. We're just not passing legislation. We're not taking action. We're doing very small things. President Trump is having to do everything through executive order because the legislative process is just completely defunct, even with Republicans in it. That is not acceptable. This dynamic has to change, and it has to change quickly.
Oren, do you think that's because Republicans are lacking courage, or because many of them are actually MINOs, MAGA in name only?
It's both. I think you're absolutely right that a lot of people, just look at what's going on. There are so many people who were anti-Trump, who opposed Trump, and now are speaking as if they speak for the MAGA movement, right? So of course they're not going to go in there and they're not going to make big changes. There's also people who are just scared. They're sold on the moral argument that they can't take any action against their enemies, even if it's entirely justified and the law is on their side, or they're worried about the nasty pieces they'll get from the New York Times or the Washington Post or something like that. But we have to get rid of this mentality. And I'm starting to see this. I'm starting to see senators like Eric Schiff or Schmidt, taking real action, using the language that is necessary, having the willingness to push these forward. But ultimately, you have to see this from the entire Republican Party. The message needs to be clear. The old Republican Party that didn't fight, that was always scared of the media, that was worried about what the Democrats would say about them, that didn't want to set the scary precedent, that Republican Party is dead because we recognize that the Democrats have already crossed the Rubicon. They've already declared war on the United States and the Constitution. They have already shot the president and tried to put him in jail so that he couldn't be elected. They've already weaponized the American intelligence community in order to affect our elections. There are no more lines left. The Democrats have crossed all of them. And that doesn't mean, again, that you just do whatever and lose your morals. It does mean you have to impose a penalty. And if you're not willing to impose a penalty, then you're just not a competent political actor and you should not be involved in American politics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty hypocritical for Republicans to say, look at these blue cities where they're letting people get away with crimes, right? Like San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, Oakland. They let the criminals right back onto the street. And then the Republicans say, you have to hold these criminals accountable because otherwise they'll just repeat. But then when it comes to Washington, DC, you have people like Adam Schiff and others. If you don't hold them accountable,
right,
then they just repeat it. And that's my frustration is like, I'm very happy with Trump, but I'm kind of, I've lost some of that trust in the GOP.
I mean, we should have no trust in the GOP, right? At this point, they have not earned our trust. They've betrayed us at every level. When people said that ultimately the MAGA movement was in many ways the dismantling of the old GOP, I think that was right. I think the reason Trump is where he is because people stopped trusting the GOP at all. And that's really, Trump was as much of a middle finger to the GOP as he was to the Democrats and the Washington establishment. And so I think that's exactly right. Now, that said, Trump has to work with the existing Republican apparatus. And this creates a lot of problems. And I will say, though I support Trump, I do think that he has lost a step with a little bit of this when it comes to pushing the Republicans to places they're not willing to go. And I think he needs to continue to apply pressure. And that means making smarter applications of primaries and recommendations. You can't be going out there pushing Lindsey Graham. Okay, like I'm sorry, I'm sorry, you just can't do it. I love Donald Trump, but you can't take that kind of action and then be taken seriously when it comes to cleaning out the swamp in Washington. So he's got to make smarter choices when it comes to applying pressure to the GOP to move them in a specific direction. They're not going to do it on their own. They're cowards. They're liars. They failed us at every level. I'm not a Republican voter at this point. I am a Donald Trump supporter. And Donald Trump I know he has to work with the GOP. That's just the political reality. But he's got to continue to push for a GOP that takes action.
Yeah. I'm a libertarian that votes conservative, and I support Trump that way. But Oren, when Trump endorses Lindsey Graham, I'm like, this is like draining the swamp, but keeping the swamp creatures. Like it makes no sense to my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, of all the dumb things that you could do, I just don't get it. I've had the guy running against him. There's another guy running against Lindsey Graham that I want to bring on. It's one of those things that I just don't fully understand. Oren, if people want to follow you online, catch your show, where can I point them towards?
I've got the Oren McIntyre Show, and it's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, it's on all the podcatchers you expect. Of course, we have Blaze TV. You can check us out over there. I have my book, The Total State, which is coming out in its second edition in paperback if people want to pick that up. And I'm on Oren McIntyre pretty much on all of the, Twitter, Gab, all of the stuff you'd want to follow on.
Okay. I will put direct links down below so people can find you easily. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks again for having me.